And so it's time for episode 6 of our Master the Art of DAZ photo blends. I'm Valkamer from Dreamlight, and in today's video we're going to be covering 3 extra ways of adding lights. That's on top of the main lights you see here and the one we've been covering in the last videos. That's extra lights we're going to cover to enhance your images. And as before, I'm using my own backdrop here, which you can find in my own store, which is dreamlight3dstore.com. The sale is still on for a few more hours, so if you hurry, you can grab amazing backgrounds and video backgrounds for DAZ Studio, Photoshop, and your video projects from $199 and up. Now, the thing is, this as of now looks like we have the environmental lighting, which we covered in mainly video number 1, right? And there's not much else going on. I mean, we added a ground color here to add a bit of kind of bounce, if you will. But the thing is, a professional way to light a scene is to use harsh lighting from the side or behind and pair it with the so-called filler, right? So filler is number one way to add extra light. So one of the 3 ways I'm going to cover today. So in order to do that, we're simply gonna add a spotlight. All right. And by the way, if you're looking at your scene from texture shaded preview, you might notice that it looks a little bit jaggy on the background. That's because if you go to preferences and here locate interface, it says texture resources currently set to performance mode. Right? There is a few, levels here, and if you bring this up to quality, the jagginess will be removed at the cost of, a little bit slower update depending on the graphic card and so forth. And so the thing is, we're gonna now grab that spotlight, we'll switch to spotlight camera and move it backwards. And the filler should be behind your camera and slightly above. Why? Because if you have it at the exact same height as your camera, it will not cast any ground shadows. What I mean with that is, looking at your character, you want to have a little bit of depth in your image, and by elevating the light slightly up, you get soft shadows underneath the breast, underneath the hips here, underneath the chin and all that, and it would just look a little bit more like it's more depth to your character. It's not gonna look flat. And I can show you that live. By the way, in your environment sub-tab or render settings, if you scroll all the way up here, you see I have it set to dome and scene, which is very important. Because when I switch in the video area preview and you don't have it to set to dome and scene, if you just have dome and the light will then not be visible, and you have it to scene only, you will only see the light, which right now is black because we haven't added it really. But if I crank it up now, just real quick here, a little bit soft look, size, give softness to your light. And if I now punch it a little bit, you see that right now I'm just seeing that light, nothing else in the scene, right? That's because I have it set to scene only. Now remember, a thing happens. So dome and scene is where you get the environmental, lighting from DAZ and your extra light from the front. Now, a very important thing and concept to understand in DAZ is that when you have the extra light here, spotlight, it will not create shadows on the ground, right? So the shadow you see here, that's from the sunshine, from this environmental thing here, right? And the shadow from the spotlight will not be visible on the ground. It will be caught on your character, but not on the ground. So that's very important to understand. Now, let's use auxiliary viewport camera, which you can find here, panes, auxiliary viewport. This is the secondary kind of view, if you will, right? And what I'm going to do is have the lights here so I can show different, types of lighting here. Like, we're going to keep it low. Like same camera. Now you see the character looks kind of flat. I'm gonna just lower its intensity a little bit. Looks kind of flat, right? And if I raise it up and aim it down, you can start noticing a little bit of shade going on, especially on her chin here, right? And that is what you want. You want that extra grounding on your character so it doesn't look all flat. Now this light is merely a filler, so it needs to fill in the blanks, not take over. So it's a little bit too intense as of now. I'm going to bring it down. And a good color for a filler is something neutral. So it's something to balance out the stuff that's going on in the scene, right? Looking at the image, it's kind of rough in the shadows. It's kind of dark. So what I'm gonna do is decrease the environmental intensity to maybe half. That's gonna bring down the intensity of the sky and sun. And now I'm gonna increase the sun to counter what I just did. So the sun is as strong as it was before, but the main lighting now from the sky, this thing surrounding here you're seeing, right, is a little bit weaker now. Because remember, the environment has two components. It has the sky and it has the sun. Now, now we can pair that with a little bit stronger filler, right? So now you have control. Now you're giving the scene your full, control here with the environment and a filler from the front. That's number one. Number two is effect lights. And you saw me actually work with that in episode 2, where we were adding that guy and the gynoid, right? And where we wanted to connect them together with that extra magenta light in his face. So in order, right now here, we don't have so much stuff that we can add just, effect lights, right? Like, come on, from where? It's not really possible. But let's change the background to something else, right? Go ahead and browse here and choose one of the other amazingly looking backdrops here, all LA infinity pool inspired, and that one is a bit more like sunset, right? And it has a totally different vibe to it. So now we're gonna simply put her just somewhere here. All right. And now what we're gonna do is suddenly now the scene kind of shifts a little bit and it looks different. And so what we can do is go ahead and add an effect light that ties her to the scene. Maybe there's a lot of blue going on here, or neon lights from the scenery, from the house itself, right? So we can add that on top of what we adding here to make it look more vibrant. Now, this scene as of now looks like we could maybe use a fake HDR to light it, all right? So there is, however, a little bit of stuff going on here with the sun. It's still present. Maybe we can use this as of now as we have it. Just use a warmer tint because we have sunshine. All right, more red tone. We're matching that. And then we're gonna use an effect light so that the spot that we added will no longer be used as a filler. Instead, we're gonna be using an effect light from the side and effect lights are often used to connect. If you lose track, use a wireframe. Is to connect your character to the environment, right? That's what I use effect lights for on a character. So here we can choose the blue, like water, for instance, or the neon happening near the water, right? Something like that, I think, right? And then I'm gonna punch it more intensely. So that now doesn't work as a filler, right? It adds an effect to our character to connect her to the environment. And that is kind of important, right? When you're working with your images, you will often find that sometimes, faking lighting solutions and quick lighting solutions ain't gonna cut it, and you have to add something extra to, make your scene work, right? And in this case, a low effect light like that, and we can make it a little bit larger so it's more soft still, and then really punch its intensity so we can feel it. Right? That truly connects her now to the environment. And by the way, it's a little bit too bright on the main thing here. Bring that down a little bit. So we are lowering the sunshine on her and letting the effect take over a little bit. Again, it kind of depends on where she's standing in the image. If she were standing here at the edge of the infinity pool, she would receive more, maybe more, sunshine in her face. But when she's standing here a little bit further away, from judging at the the surroundings of the image, it looks like we can use more blue here, right? Blue effect light. Now this brings us to the third kind of way of using extra lights, and that is to add cinematic silhouette. Okay, this works really well in most cases. It's kind of odd, but it just works. The Hollywood way of lighting is to always have these high up backlights in someone's head that make the character's face and head stand out from the background, so they are more visible and so forth, right? And you can do that for them, like in I would say 90% of cases. You can add that to almost any image and it just works. It's just something odd about it, but it just works. So let me switch environment real quick. And for that, I'm gonna just grab here another set background and choose, for instance, Cyberpunk Workshop 1. Yeah, that looks pretty awesome. And add it to the backdrop. And so now, well, she kind of feels like she has the wrong clothing here. Let's just ignore the fact that she has a bikini on and just work with that, right? All right. And so here is the thing. When you have an interior like this, and it looks kind of cool, right? You wanna, remove, like disconnect. Don't get me wrong, you want to connect her to the backdrop, but you also want to disconnect it from her so that she stands out. So I'm going to first remove that extra blue light we have, right? And we're going to use a fake HDR for this, so real quick. So like I said before, do a 32-bit conversion, smaller size. We don't need 4K. Oops, we don't need 4K for this, right? 2K is more than enough. And just save it. And we're just gonna call it HDR underscore, well, HDR fake, whatever, right? There we go. Now, so back in DAZ Studio, I'm gonna use environment tint white. Then we're gonna use that image we just created. And just gonna add it. There we go, and rotate it slightly so it matches roughly what's going on in the scene. And pretty much we have magenta right behind her, so I'd say we don't want to have any magenta visible on her, right? Let's go ahead and choose maybe, let's rotate it so we get away from that magenta look. I'd say something like that. Looks pretty good. All right, so that's that, right? And now let's bring down the intensity a little bit darker where she's standing. Here is a perfect example of, you can use the environment lights, just add something, and then we might need to pair it with an effect light and maybe a filler. But I'm not gonna go full blown here with all lights at the same time. I'm just gonna cover real quick the extra Hollywood type of lighting, which is gonna go to auxiliary viewport and the camera, texture shaded, and having the light selected now, I can direct the light so it's coming from behind our capture and from the side. Okay, so one side. So I'm gonna pretty much do one coming from this side, top down, all right? Then it's about letting that light do its job on the upper body, not the entire body. And the way you control that is with two ways. One is to get the light a little bit closer to your character, so you can aim it away so it doesn't hit the entire body. And at the same time, I'm gonna lower its size there is a thing going on with size, and that is when the light becomes too large, it starts to disobey your spread angle. Okay, so when you have spread angle, let's say 30, to aim the light at someone's head in this case, if the size is too large, it will just ignore that a little bit, and that's not a good thing, right? So we have a more narrow now angle, and we can go ahead and direct that to anywhere we like here and aim it slightly away to touch just what we want. We can just touch the head, right? And by the way, now we can tune down the intensity of it. It's way too strong. And second is that we can now go ahead and maybe have a more casual hair on her, right? Let's do that real quick. Genesis 9 and hair, and by the way, this is Genesis 8 hair. I added that to the character, which is called Ethel hair. I love that. And we're gonna just disable all kinds of wind on it. That wind made sense in a pool. It does not in this environment, right? Let's put it also behind her shoulders. Cool. Now, and that's one way of using that, right? From this direction, something like that. You want to avoid hitting the face so much with it. This is mainly an effect light, so put it as much behind and from the side as you can, and direct it away from the side. And this might differ depending on where you are, where your character is looking at. Sometimes your character might look more to the right in an image and be caught more by a light, right? Because lights do multiple things in your scene, right? They give lighting, they bounce around, and they also create damage. So sometimes you get a lot of damage from the lights. Need to fix that. So I'm gonna copy that now, so we have an extra light. And that light, my friend, I'm gonna put it on the other side. So pretty much we're gonna go all around to the other side of the character. Here, also top down, and just aim it from the other side. And this now creates this typical Hollywood style, lighting that you get on your characters. Hollywood just loves framing your character's head like that with the extra light, right? That's just what they do. And now it's all about, fine tuning that and making sure it doesn't, damage your scene. And by the way, I'm gonna devote the whole chapter using our photo backgrounds with something I call layers, because sometimes when you render, light creates damage, like I just mentioned, right? And sometimes it's easier to work with layers, so you can have lights rendered separately. You can then control them in Photoshop. It's a very cool technique that I just love, and that also gives you a lot of creative options because you can control how lighting falls and all that. So guys, that's pretty much it for today. Thanks so much for watching. Go and check my store, dreamer3dstore.com, for awesome backgrounds and video backgrounds. And I will be back next time, and I think I'm gonna either go the route with layers or special enhancements, or if we're gonna cover real HDR maps. There's a few more episodes more to cover until we have everything in place. That's all for now, guys. Have fun with your art. See you soon again.